Hey, what's good everyone? Local Iceman here. What I got in front of you here today is some parts for the conditioner. I got a lift bushing kit right here. Got some springs for the blade bar, horizontal auger bearings, as well as leaf springs for the blade and leaf springs for the conditioner. Now, I usually do all this at once, but today I'm just going to focus on the horizontal auger bearings because how you do them is a little bit different than our old machine, the 500. I haven't done bearings on the new machine. On a new machine, you don't have to remove the conditioner and the auger to redo the bearings. All you gotta do is put the bearings on or take them off and put them on. So I'm just gonna focus on that today just to see how it is and just do a separate video on the bearings itself. Then we'll do the rest of this next week. Because when you do the lift bushings, it just makes sense to do the leaf springs because you have the conditioner off, as well as if you're doing the leaf springs for the conditioner, might as well do them for the blade. These things probably should be replaced every 3 to 5 years, no more than 5 years. That's where we're at with this machine. These springs right here for the blade bar, I think these probably be the hardest to get on and off if everything else goes smooth. These typically give me the hardest trouble to get them on. Getting them off, not very hard, but getting them on, pain in the ass. And what you don't see here is the sprocket and vertical auger bearings. Those are two other things that I probably want to change in an ideal situation, do it all at once. But, you know, things don't work out ideally here always. So this is what I'm going to do for this round of maintenance. Then we'll get some vertical auger bearings in here and do those things at a separate time. Doing them in steps is a little bit easier for me than doing everything all at once. But for today's video, we're going to focus on the horizontal auger bearings, get those things done, get the machine back in service. So let's go ahead and switch views and we'll get them done. I just want to show you the old machine here and how the horizontal auger bearings mount on the machine. Now, I believe one time I did get this auger out without pulling this thing off. Zamboni says you got to pull the conditioner off to get the auger off because it hits the vertical auger housing. But I'm pretty sure I did that once, replace these bearings without taking that out. But I typically do everything at once and replace these bearings, so it's usually a moot point. But anyway, so how these things are set up, the bearings are actually on the inside and they're kind of bolted through the outside. If you come to this machine over here, you can see it's set up a little bit different. The first thing I have to do is take this plastic runner off, then get these bolts off, take off the grease zert connection there. I can see the only problem with getting these things off is I can't really get a bearing puller in there to get these bearings off. So I hope these bearings slide off relatively easy. Other than that, it should be pretty easy. You're not gonna have to take the auger off or the conditioner off to get these bearings off. And over here on the other side, it's pretty much the same thing. I don't think they change everything over here. I already have this thing off. I got the chain loose, but I'm gonna have to slide this sprocket off to get the chain off because there's not enough really play in the system here to do that. So I'm going to show you how to get this sprocket off pretty easy. You just take these 3 bolts off and you thread them into these holes right there, and it just kind of pushes them out. So all right, let's go ahead and get some tools ready. I'm just going to pop this plastic runner off first. Nice and easy. You don't want to break any bolts off. This last one right here in the corner is actually bolted in to the grease zert, so I'm just going to rotate it this way. All right, before we get started here, when I do each side, I'm going to put this blade guard on because I don't want to take the blade off, and I'm going to be reaching in to the bolts, and I like all my fingers where they are. So let's go ahead and get this zert off right here, the connection. Then we'll go ahead and loosen these bolts right here. All right, I got 11/16 wrench. I'm going to put on the inside, and a 5/8 socket I'm going to put on the outside and take off 4 of these bolts. Alright, there you go, there's the last one. I got the grease cleaned up there so I can see inside the Allen keyhole there. It's an 1/8 inch Allen wrench here. Got a nice good bite in there. Last thing I'm going to do is strip these things. Got one to break. Oh yes. Right, I think this collar is loose enough. Yeah, it's loose. Now hopefully this thing just slides right off. Oh yeah. Pretty much slid right off. This don't want to come off. I gotta get rid of these gloves. There you go. All right, so I think that's good and cleaned up. All right, at 15/16 wrench, we'll get this little grease zert off there. All right, just gonna slide the new one on here. This hole's facing forward. There we go. So I think I'm gonna bolt it on before I tighten the collar up. Got 5/8 on this side and 11/16 on the inside. These three right here you could take off and loosen from the back side, but this one right here, you gotta get it from the front side. Let's go and do the final tightening from the inside with the bolts. All right, that's good. That's good. And that one's good. Next thing we're gonna do is stick that grease hose deal back in. I think it's gonna come in through this hole right there. And I'm holding on this side right here, push it in while I'm gonna tighten it up in a 1/2" wrench. Let's go ahead and tighten this collar up right here. I got my 1/8 Allen wrench. Actually, it's a 5/32 Allen key you wanna use for these ones. And a little bit bigger. We're gonna have to tighten these things kind of together, I guess. I'm not gonna be able to do one and not the other. That one looks much tighter. Zamboni did say they got a bunch of collars that were too big that shipped with the bearings. So I gotta call them and let them know if these ones are too big. But they're getting tight. I can feel they're getting tight. And there's still a little gap there. So I think these are the right size. I'm gonna call that one tight. I'm gonna call that one tight too. All right, stick some grease in there. Make sure it's all solid. All right, I'm starting to see grease come through. I think you probably start seeing it right there. We're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and slide the camera back here a little bit. Put the plastic runner back on here. All right, got the last one right here. All right, this side's done. Let's go ahead and pop on the other side and replace the other bearing. All right, I'm here on the other side. I already got the chain loose. I think that I'm gonna try to avoid to take the master link off to get the chain off. Where is that master link right there? I can pop that thing off and get the chain off, but I need to slide this thing off anyway, so we'll see if I have to get that link off. 7/16 socket right here. What you're gonna do is unloosen these 3 bolts, get this sprocket off. So as soon as you get all 3 of them off, you switch them over to the threaded holes. I just kind of churn into the first one bites. Same with the second one and the third one. And you're going to start working them in until the sprocket pops off. Do it slowly, don't be in a rush. These are pretty thin bolts. You don't want them to snap. Oh, damn it. Just like that. Oh, you're being stupid about it. Alright, after some help with Johnny, a bearing puller, we got this thing popped off. But it came off together, so we're going to have to separate this collar from this sprocket over on the workbench. Let's go ahead and loosen the set screws on the collar. Get this bearing off. Oh, did it unloosen or did it strip? Fuck. Alright, with the 13mm wrench, I unloosened the grease zert. These collar set screws are stripped out now. I should have used some anti-rust coil roll. I'm gonna go get some. It's too late for that. So I'm just gonna unloosen these bolts right now and see if I can slide this bearing off. I may have to cut this collar off because I kind of fucked up with that. This last one's easier to get through the front. Got that off. So right now, I'm gonna be honest, every time we do this, there's always a hiccup. And this is my hiccup right here, is this collar. Getting the sprocket off is usually the tough part for us. All right, after grinding the collar loose, you know, that's the first time I've probably done this. This is my 4th time, so it's not like I do this every week or every year. So it's my 4th, let's say maybe 5th time I've done this, and I've never had any issues getting the bearings off. It's always been the sprocket. So, but that bearing's loose. So let me go ahead and lift it up. Alright, this bearing's giving me a little trouble getting it off. It slides to a certain point and stops. So let me see if I can coax it off with the bearing puller here. I got it outside the housing at least. There we go. Time to slap the other bearing on. I'm gonna put the bearing on, tighten it up, tighten the collar up, put the grease thing on, stick the sprocket on, and start putting it all back together. Pull the zert off, make sure you point your zert forward, because that would be unfortunate. Slide this guy in there. Yeah, my whole stuff forward, yep. Alright, let's go ahead and stick my bolts in here. Let's do this bottom one next. Let's go ahead and snug these things up. I'm going to snug them up from this side over here, because that's where the bolt is. Alright, let's go ahead and get this collar on right here. That one's pretty snug. Let's go ahead and check this one right here. Yeah, I see that's tight too. Alright, so I got these bolts tight, got the collar tight. Let's go ahead and slap this sprocket back on. I did break off a bolt, so I'm going to have to run to the hardware store here real quick and pick up another one of these guys right here. Be right back. Alright, it's time to slip this grease zert thing back on here. Alright, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and stick some grease in there, make sure it's working before we get everything slapped on there. Yeah, she's greased. Alright, let's go ahead and slap the sprocket on here. Right here real quickly, I'll pop this taper collar off the sprocket. Just want to show you here real quick how this thing works. This has a little taper on it on the collar here, and when you slip it into the sprocket inside there, as you tighten the bolts together, it pinches against the auger shaft and binds it down onto it. So this tapered right here, again, as you slide it into the sprocket, it pinches onto the auger shaft, locking it on. So first thing we got to do before I forget is put this little keyway in here. I don't want to slide it all onto it. I'm all ready. You slide this on, you slide this on, and you want to get this thing set with the chain, then tighten it all up together, then tighten your set screw back here, and you're good to go. But you don't want to get this thing tight yet until you get it all lined up the chain, because this thing will shift just a little bit as you're tightening this thing back up in here. Let's go ahead and set our chain up. Get that going here. Get them on. So let's go ahead and line up the bolt holes here. Oops, this one right here. Let's go ahead and get this chain lined up on here. Master link. Down this way so you guys can see that. Alright. And this little guy right here. Alright, it's on there. Okay. Let's see here. This needs to go in a little bit more here. So let me go ahead and pull these. Don't hit the chain. Make sure your bolts are going to still line up in there. Hard time focusing there, but chain's loose, but it's lined up on the sprocket. So while eyeballing the chain alignment, I'm going to tighten these up at the same time. I think everything's lined up, so I'm going to tighten my set screw on the collar here. Alright, set screw on the collar is tight. Let's go ahead and tighten these down while we still maintain alignment on the chain. Just going to tighten these ones just a little at a time. Chain still looks like it's falling nice on the sprocket there. Okay. That one's tight. That one's tight. And that one's tight. All right, I'm going to tighten the auger chain down right here by adjusting those 2 bolts right there. And as soon as I get to the proper deflection, I'm going to tighten those 2 bolts and those 2 bolts right there. Go and check out my other video if you want to see how to tighten the auger chain and how to use the adjustment bolts to make sure everything's right. All right, I got a 5/16 deflection on the chain here, as well as a 7/32 deflection on the wash water pump belt. It's time to tighten down the auger bolts, then put the cover back on, then we're good to go. All right, I got my set screws tight on the motor. The motor is tight itself, auger chain's tight, wash water pump is tight, up to deflection as recommended by Zamboni. Let's do a test spin before we pop the cover on here. Oh, spinning good. Get some lube sprayed on this thing first before you slap the cover on. All right, go ahead and do this one right here. Double check the tightness on these guys right here, and we're good to go. All right, guys, one thing I'll mention, make sure you grab one of these cans. Every ice rink probably should have one, a Coral Royal, the oil that creeps. If I spread these things on a couple of the collars, the set screws that I had, I think I would have an easier time getting them off. But don't expect this to go smooth. It never really does. There's always a few hiccups, a few hurdles you have to get over. Allow yourself a few hours. It's okay. You know, 2 people is probably a good call too, to have a second person here to help you get something off. Get yourself the proper tools and you'll be set. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. As always, I hope you learned something. And like the local Iceman says, stay cool.